40 weeks for men. 40 weeks for men. 40 weeks for men. So today we're in week 29. Thinking about week 29 of development, but still in the home stretch in the final part. So today we're going to do the foundations episode. So we're trying to educate, witness the experience, talk about society at large, and call listeners to action. Let's get into it. We'll learn together to start with. So learning together, hello beautiful plants. So learning together, week 29 of development. So a lot is happening here. What they say here, like based on research and looking at the week 29 development baby, what they say here is that the baby is perfectly formed at this point. So now it's just getting bigger and bigger and getting ready to be born, but it's perfectly formed. So I think this is a pretty amazing milestone. The baby is perfectly formed. So we spoke about this in previous episodes, but I'll say again, at this point, there was remember that greasy thin layer, that white substance that was covering the developing baby or the embryo or the fetus, that we discussed, called vernix. At this point in week 29, research shows that this layer of vernix is starting to disappear. Why is this important? Because this layer of vernix is very important for maintaining the temperature, the warmth of the baby as it develops in the mummy's tummy. So there's a thin layer of downy hair that is protected by the vernix, but this vernix is starting to disappear now because the baby no longer needs it as much at week 29. So more fat, baby fat is being stored to keep the temperature of the baby, and also this vernix layer is disappearing, and also this downy hair, this thin layer of downy hair is more prominent, so that the baby can maintain its warmth. So as I said, it's pretty much perfectly formed now, but what's happening is that the internal organs are maturing more and more. So the internal organs, things like the brain, things like the heart, things like the lungs, things like the liver, things like the spleen, things like the pancreas, things like the kidneys, the bladder, and in the mother's case, the uterus or womb are developing in the baby. I think that's pretty amazing. Maturing, that's the better word, maturing in the baby. So it's all happening now. It's getting ready to be born in about 11 weeks time, if sometime, but we'll see. So now it's time to witness to my experience. So at this point, I try and think about my experience having my own 3 little girls. Thinking about it, literally just before I recorded the episode, I went into my oldest daughter's room, and I was like, I saw a picture of her in the room, like one of these scan photographs. I think it was a 12-week scan. She was so small. And obviously now at week 29, we're thinking about maturing and the baby is developing. And obviously, it's actually mad. Because at the time recording, my oldest daughter is 7 years old. So, today I was encouraging her to have breakfast, making sure she got to school on time. And it's just amazing how she's matured from that photograph at week 12 of gestation or development up until a 7-year-old girl going to school and having breakfast. Yeah, the maturity. It's amazing to, once in a while, stop and just think about how maturity happens, how growth happens. And if you don't do that, it's so easy for life to pass you by. Now it's time to think about society at large. I'm going to use my screen because, today it's what I'm going to use to read the Bible. But I think there's a really good parallel verse that we can learn from here. And it's 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 11. I'll go ahead and read it from the English Standard Version using my screen here. So 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 11. So when I was a child, I spoke like a child. When I was a child, I thought like a child. And when I was a child, I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put away childish ways. Awesome. Yeah, and I think that there's a strong parallel here in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 11. Sometimes you can stop and think, oh yeah, when I was a child I used to do this, or when I was younger I used to do this. But now there's change happening. And I think that maturity should be sought by especially dads, but all human beings. We should always be trying to get better and improve and mature, lose our vernix, and get good at managing our own temperature. But yeah, I think it's very encouraging to look at the developing baby and be like, oh yeah, actually I can mature, just like it says here in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 11. And also as we see the developing baby at the different weeks of gestation, improving, maturing as time goes on. So yeah, I'm encouraged by that. I hope you're encouraged by that too. Not you plant, but you listeners. It's time to call the listeners to action. So the call to action this week is, you may have guessed it, but I'll tell you, stop for a second. Really take stock. Think about how you as a person have matured, and think about how you want to mature more in the future. It might be something around your temperament, it might be around something around the body, it might be around something around eating habits. There might be loads of things, but think about how we can mature as people, and this will help us create and make and maintain stronger families, because this is all for families.